Neighbors in shock as a Florida woman who was viewed as a pillar of the community, who served our nation as a U.S. Army captain, guns down her husband in their bedroom. The question tonight, will she use stand your ground as a defense against murder? Because this is happening in Florida. Valerie Lowe told cops she and her husband Lawrence were arguing over bills. But things escalated when she brought up one of his female friends. She claims Lawrence had been drinking, was getting aggressive, so she grabbed the gun from the nightstand, pointed it at him, and told him to stay away. That then he balled up his fist as if he was going to hit her, and she fired in self-defense.
My husband was coming after me, and he refused to leave me alone, and he was being very aggressive and assault me, and he drew his fist back while I was laying in the bed like he was going to punch me in my face once again.
Is he still there?
We were arguing, and I shot him.
You shot him?
Cops are not buying her story, claiming she later changed her story and said that her husband actually did hit her. Now, here's a question tonight. Did she have a secret life? Cops point out this newly married woman was already surfing a dating site. They'd only been married about a year. They say, as a former U.S. Army captain, she's been trained to protect herself. So why'd she have to go for the ultimate, the gun? But guess what? He's also trained. It says right in the arrest affidavit he was in the Navy for 3 years. Well, now this 53-year-old woman is behind bars in Florida, and the judge will not grant her bail. She is charged with murder, too. Second-degree murder. Was Valerie Lowe looking for a way out of her marriage, or was she really in fear for her life, as she claims? We'll debate it in the Lion's Den, but first we're looking at photos from inside the home. In the police report, cops say Valerie was calm and cool and collected, and there were no signs of a struggle in the bedroom where Larry was shot. If Larry didn't actually hit her in self-defense, you know, before we get to this whole stand your ground, what do you make of this, Lisa Bloom? Especially, you heard her voice there calling 911.
Listen, what's most important are the facts of the case and what the evidence shows. She had to be in reasonable fear of imminent great bodily injury or death before she's allowed to shoot her husband or anyone else. So that's what we have to look for. But I have to say, I'm starting to see a real gender difference in the way that stand your ground is applied in Florida. We saw the Marissa Alexander case where she was initially sentenced to 20 years for just firing a warning shot at her allegedly abusive husband. That was reversed on appeal, and now the prosecutor's looking for 60 years against her. Nobody was harmed in that case. So is it possible that local prosecutors see men as more able to stand their ground in an argument, that very macho kind of phrase, and women, they're more skeptical when they have those claims? I don't know, but I think it's a question that we should all be asking.
But that's odd, Sierra Elizabeth, because women physically are not as strong as men, so you'd think that if anyone needed to stand their ground with a weapon and be forced with force perceived, hypothetically, that would be a woman.
Amen.
Well, I'm not sure, Jane, because here we have a atypical woman. She's not the stereotypical weak, docile woman. She's a former U.S. Army captain. And so the jurors are going to look at that with some skepticism here. But the most important evidence in this case is going to come down to the 2 domestic violence calls that happened previous to this accident. If Lowe was shown to be the aggressor in any of those former reports, she's toast.
That backs up her story, because there were 2 DV calls to this house prior, but we don't know the details yet, so we don't know who called whom, who called the cops on whom. And by the way, Jane, I hope the stereotypical woman isn't weak. Isn't weak anymore. I certainly don't fit that stereotype. Now, cops say Valerie didn't call 911 right away, that she changed her clothes, turned on the porch light, and here's a key fact, waited a full 12 minutes from the time she turned on that light until she called for help. What was she doing in that time?
To be honest with you, I believe the delay was so that he would not make any dying utterances.
All right, Steve Greenberg, what do you think about that delay? I don't know how they figured that out. Maybe somebody has a surveillance video of that light going on. But anyway, why the 12 minutes?
Well, there's facts you can't change, and that's the worst fact for her. She didn't call, and when she does call, you don't hear fear in her voice You don't hear any anxiousness in her voice. She, in my opinion, waited the 12 minutes for the exact reason they say. She was waiting for him to die. Unfortunately, I know I'm supposed to try and defend this one, but this one's tough.
I don't know. Chuck Williams, nobody knows what happens behind closed doors. What we do know is the victim, Larry, is not here to defend himself, and his family says he was a very gentle guy. Final thoughts, Chuck.
I was going to say, psychologically, some of the things folks are saying troubles me. The typical woman, you have federal prosecutors, you have professors, you have senior VPs, those who serve in the sheriff's department, all kinds of women in all ranges of positions who deal with what's called battered women syndrome. And psychologically, that means the partner owns them. So because of their training and where they are, it doesn't really matter.